As you know, the provost and I have overseen and been tasked to launch these task forces and our efforts in this area by the President, President Castro. Last year, we had a Student Success Summit 1. We brought world-renowned scholar Vincent Tinto here to the campus. We had a number of informative sessions and discussions and panels. Leading up to Summit 1, we reached out to faculty, students, and staff and asked them the question, what was going well at Fresno State in terms of student success, and what was not going so well. We had over 200 respondents from across campus. We put all of those responses in 5 buckets, so to speak. Those being the 5 task forces that the provost and I had commissioned to do the work. Each task force had a student affairs professional and academic affairs professional that co-led these, and every task force had student affairs, academic affairs, students, faculty, and staff on them. So it was absolutely a team effort by everyone on campus as it seemed needed on these different groups. All fall, these groups studied the issues that they were tasked to do, and they submitted reports in January, both orally and in writing, and then we asked them to do even one more task and then put their work to, a quick abstract and some information. The reports are online, and Mike Provenos has told me that we're going to flash those up at some point, and we're going to have all of this, what we did Summit 1, Summit 2, with this information, some of the comments, and we're going to ask the community again to give us feedback on each of the 5 reports. What did you like? What didn't you like? Where might we go into the future? Today will be very brief reports. I will take the hook out if I need to, but I know that I won't. The provost and I will take all of this information, and we will do a presentation for the President's Cabinet sometime in the near future. At that point, we will, with all the information from the community, the task forces, the feedback we've gotten off the website, anything else, we will move forward at that point to basically make some recommendations. Some of those recommendations could be we need funds to do X, Y, or Z, and we hope that some of these things will be able to start as soon as this fall, or certainly shortly thereafter. And I guess the last thing, kudos to all the members of the panel, their co-chairs, and if I could just have everybody who was on one of the task forces, please rise so that we can give you an applause here. All the members of the task forces. Thank you so much for all your hard work, and with it, let's do it. Why don't you introduce yourself? Are you going to go first, Andrew? Are you first on? Or who's
I wasn't sure if they were going to have our charge and things up, or we can go in any order. I guess we can go in any order. Very good. So I'm Andrew Lawson, the Interim Dean of the College of Science and Math, and co-chaired with Selena Gomez the task force on the first-year experience. So we were charged with looking at the possibility of creating a comprehensive first-year experience for all or close to all of our incoming freshmen. The group divided up some of the tasks and created a set of outcomes, learning outcomes for the first-year experience. But looking at the literature and some of the other successful first-year experiences nationally, we really wanted the experience to focus on self-efficacy and sense of belonging, navigating the university and some of the resources, connecting the students to their major, and as well as some advising and academic planning, and then building on some core competencies like information literacy, teamwork, and some life skills. So, and all of those outcomes were set within our framework of discovery, diversity, and distinction. To create a comprehensive first-year experience, we really felt the need for a bridge or a summer experience with that. And we currently, of course, have dog days as a summer experience, which our students do, and we really felt that we needed to separate out dog days from what we considered our first-year experience summer program. So dog days would be reimagined to focus really more on just registration and advising, because that needs to happen earlier in the year. And then just before the students come on campus, the week before the fall semester starts, we recommended a 2-day summer experience designed really to create a sense of belonging, connect the students with peers and the faculty, so making those social connections to really make them feel part of the community. Learn about opportunities, how to get engaged and how to get involved on campus, as well as creating a half-day college program. So each of the students would go to their individual colleges for half a day. Through the academic year, we looked at creating a combination of coursework and co-curricular activities. The co-curricular component and activities would be really structured online and tracked online with an e-portfolio to document and reflect on those experiences. And we really couldn't settle on an exact model for the coursework component. We had 2 options. Because most of our degrees are capped, our degrees are capped at 120 units. Most of our degrees are already at that 120 units. We can't add a new course, so we really have to work within the framework of our existing general education program. Most of those areas are across many departments and many different courses. So we looked at A1, or oral communication, as a place to perhaps insert some of these first-year learning experiences and outcomes. So add some of these learning outcomes to the area A1. The issue then is that some of the students would be taking their oral communication in the fall and some in the spring, and you miss that opportunity to bond the students into the program in the fall semester. The second option was to create essentially a first-year designation for courses within the GE program. So inserting some of those first-year experience learning outcomes throughout multiple courses, and a student would basically be required to take an FYE designated course in their fall semester. And that'd be across multiple areas within the GE program. All of those would be supplemented again with this co-curricular activities documented online and structured online with an e-portfolio to sort of pull it all together and have the student reflect on those experiences.
All right. Good morning. The Student Success Task Force on Advising was charged with identifying issues associated with the transition to a decentralized advising model and to develop recommendations for sustainability. In actuality, what we have at Fresno State is we're currently employing a decentralized shared advising model, and I'd like to give you a little definition of really what that is. It utilizes both faculty and professional advisors in a dual advising role. Faculty provide guidance on the academic major and career mentoring, while professional advisors advise more on general education requirements. So our task force assembled 3 subcommittees with the following task. 1, we conducted a literature review of best advising practices and models. We explored current college advising centers' use of social media and web communication. And we also collected qualitative and quantitative data from 3 sources. One from a faculty survey that was conducted. We had a professional advisors forum. And then we also collected information from the Council of Department Chairs. Out of that, the task force developed themes, and from the data collection, formulated the following 5 recommendations. Number 1, increase visibility and understanding of the decentralized shared advising model by creating a comprehensive cross-campus training program that will establish some clarification and clear communication regarding the role of professional advisors and faculty advisors within each college, to also include university advising. College professional advisors should have a clear understanding of their roles and responsibilities and how these are distinct from and overlap with university advising and other college centers and faculty. Consideration should be given to policy pertaining to faculty probationary plans in regards to those expectations. And training should integrate high-impact practices into faculty and professional advisor training. Also, enhance advising communities with a focus on system-wide approach to advising for retention and progress towards graduation. We also recommended developing a comprehensive communication plan that will inform everyone on campus of the processes and roles of advisors. Number 2, examine structural issues and challenges. Consider the establishment of a lead advisor in each college center. Continue to take a look at the staffing needs in these centers and establish some common best practices across colleges to improve efficiency, communication, and student success. We can do this by improving and enhancing information sharing, flowcharts and syllabi, for example, develop consistent assessment plans across college, and collaborate with the Career Development Center. Number 3, establish clear guidelines on the use of technology and tools for efficient advising services. Identify and train and utilize tools to advise students. We need to develop a common language and understanding, for example, on the use of U-Direct roadmaps, Grades First, and other advising software and assessment tools. Number 4, faculty research. Create opportunities for student-faculty research partnerships focusing on advising services. For example, discipline-specific research on student support services that could result in student projects and presentations. Seek professional development opportunities that embrace the role of faculty and professional staff partnerships that focus on student success, and opportunities for faculty to contribute to the development of assessment tools. Number 5, create a mechanism to sustain our efforts in a plan that would be aligned with our communication plan. Review data, continue to review data from the faculty survey to identify faculty challenges and concerns, and also to continue to review information from professional advisors and the chairs. In advancing these recommendations, the task force recommends that the Campus Advising Network and the Advising Council play an extremely important role in consulting with faculty, staff, administrators, and students as we work on important components of the advising system at Fresno State. Thank you.
I'm Debbie Young, the Interim Director of the Career Development Center, and our subcommittee's charge was student employment on campus. Has anyone in the audience ever used a student assistant before? All of us, right? Maybe some of you were one at one time, so I think this one is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. So we found through research and best practices that students who were student assistants graduated sooner and had higher GPAs than students that were not student assistants. So we asked OIE for some help on our own campus, and we looked only at May 2015 grads, and through PeopleSoft records and HR records showing that students were student assistants, we also found that there was some kind of a correlation going on with students who were student assistants tended to stay on campus, they graduated, and they had higher GPAs. In addition, we know working in the Career Development Center, we get a lot of employer feedback. And yes, students, if you went to yesterday's job fair, we had 1,300 students and 200 employers there. There are jobs out there. We know that talking to employers and looking at national data, that we have seen that students need work experience before they graduate, especially in soft skills. And we know student assistants gain those soft skills, whether it's customer service, seeing diversity, learning to be creative, taking initiative. We've seen a lot of that. Challenges that we have at Fresno State is there are multiple job posting systems at Fresno State in different schools and in the centralized career development office. Students are uncertain where to go. Employers, such as departments, don't know where to post those positions. About 75 departments we discovered on campus are actively using Bulldog Link, which is the centralized system, and we know a lot more departments offer student assistant positions, but they don't necessarily post them on there because they don't know how or they don't know about the system. A lot of times jobs are only given to students based on word of mouth. They're not found on a posting system. So we did some research and looked at the 22 other CSUs along with some other schools like Boise State, UN Reno, UNLV, Mexico State, and we found a couple of best practices on those campuses. The biggest thing that we found is they all had a centralized office where students went for on-campus employment. We also found that they had job fairs just for student employment, oftentimes offered in the fall. And a lot of them also had, and even our own Dr. McDonald was on our subcommittee with the library, they do a lot of training, offboarding, and onboarding of students' assistants as well, and we saw that as a best practice. So our recommendations are threefold. The first one is related to resources. First of all, a campus-wide policy on student employment we believe would help improve the system that we currently have. Some kind of an online application system leveraging PeopleSoft data and also mobile capability where a student could look on their phone and look specifically what jobs are available at the beginning of each semester. Also, a dedicated student employment coordinator of some type. In most of the other colleges we looked at, we saw that student employment coordination tended to be through the Career Development Center on most campuses. The second component we would like to see is training. Campus education on a new posting system. I'm happy to report as of July 1st, we will have one career services database for all colleges on campus and the Career Development Center. We're all moving to one system together that we all agreed on. Also, supervisor mentor training. How many of you have had a student assistant and you become a mentor to that student? You're a very valuable person. And then lead workshops for students as well on professional development that relates to student assistants. And I know we're doing some of that already currently. And then finally, a culture shift. Student employment should be viewed as experiential learning, right? Some campuses actually, even in their job descriptions, put learning outcomes on their job descriptions. We'd like to see that happen. And then finally, a clear onboarding and offboarding process of all student assistants on campus. Exit interviews can tell us a lot about what worked and what didn't work as a student assistant. And I'll bet a lot of you in the audience started. I know I was a student assistant at the U of A. It made a difference in my life. We think it can make a huge difference in our students' lives and student success. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Maxine McDonald. Our task force was class availability, capacity, and bottlenecks. I am sure that we are all very familiar with the complaints and concerns the campus community has expressed about getting classes. Numerous students talk about they're not able to get into classes in order to move toward graduation as they should. Our task force undertook this. We thought very boldly out of the box. We did the moonshot and all of that. I'd like to thank Dr. Swanning Fu, who's in the audience, all members of the committee, as well as deans, associate deans, and chairs, because through a very concerted effort that started this summer, Dr. Fu has been able to secure additional class sections for the coming fall. So this is really going to help the problem. And then we looked forward to see what are those things that we could do to increase the availability of classes. The goal is to increase course load. As you saw from some of the data early on this morning, our students are taking about 13.4 or 5 units per semester. And that is not going to move them to graduation in 4 years, 5 years, of course. So we looked at courses for first-time freshmen, we looked at continuing students, transfer students, and the bottlenecks. So I'm happy to report for the coming fall semester, we have increased lower division GE seats by 16%. For transfers, those seats have increased to by 26%. For continuing students, again, seats by 26%. And as you well know, continuing students and transfer students have some classes that are, common to both. So we're well on our way to making classes or seats in classes available to our students so that we can increase the unit load. And the good thing about this, we're going to know right away at census in the fall if it worked. So keep your fingers crossed. In addition to those actions taken, we have a number of recommendations. First of all, we need a classroom building. Not news to anyone, so they said think boldly. So we're asking or recommending that we get new facilities or convert available space that we may have to classrooms. This would increase capacity for bottleneck courses such as chemistry and lab courses such as biology lab. In addition, we are recommending that we look at increasing online offerings where appropriate. This would take some of the pressure off of the classroom capacity issue that we have. And then we went on to, again, start to think outside of the box. We are recommending that the university require course management and schedule training for all chairs. We are recommending that we release unused seats in learning communities by a specified date, and that the APM 231 to allow 3 weeks to drop a course without permission after semester start rather than 4 weeks, so from 3 weeks to 4 weeks. We are also recommending that we delay the student registration for a repeat course unto a specified date. And we are encouraging programs and departments to examine course offering to ensure that the sequencing each semester would ensure the availability for key courses for students. So that is, in a nutshell, what we're looking at. We are excited about the possibilities this summer, and that will set the stage for additional thinking behind, increasing course availability.
Thanks, Maxine. Good morning. Before I begin, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Provost Zelezny and Vice President Lamas for their leadership addressing student success at Fresno State. Times like this when we can come together and discuss complex issues are too few, so thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm Scott Moore. I'm co-chair of the Student Success Force and Remediation, and I appreciate this opportunity to share our committee's findings and recommendations with you. Our committee is composed of exceptionally talented faculty and staff representing a large number of campus offices. Initially, we reviewed best practice articles nationally, regionally, and locally, and we routinely reviewed very large volumes of data. In the end, we were very pleased to conclude that, largely, Fresno State is performing best practice and is even seen as a leader in the CSU for preparing remedial students for college-level work. That doesn't mean we don't change and adapt to serve our students. We do have more work to do. But campus data clearly and repeatedly show that students who complete remedial coursework their first year and choose the correct pathway in each subject area do better than students who do not. The committee, therefore, offered suggestions and pilot programs to further strengthen our campus's commitment to student success and recommends careful analysis of implemented solutions. In mathematics, specifically, we recommend the following. A math lab addition to Math 4R to improve the pass rate. Likely, this would also include the use of department tutors. Second, we recommend enhanced enrollment guidance in math. Data suggests better performance for students who begin math remediation in the fall. Therefore, we recommend facilitating remediation enrollment to maximize the opportunity for fall semester seat availability using the following tools. First, a technology and advising restriction to ensure proper placement in Math 4R or Math 1RA, 1RB, and second, guided placements into these classes as part of the Early Start program. Obviously, the idea of everybody beginning math remediation in the fall has significant logistical challenges, which need to be carefully assessed at the department level. Third, we recommend the Department of Mathematics consider an accelerated remediation option, such as a 7-week Math 4R, followed by a 7-week Math 45 the same semester. Similarly, we recommend a pilot program of a 7-week Math 1RA, followed by a 7-week Math 1RB, thereby completing all remedial math requirements in 1 semester. Fourth, we recommend significant expansion of Early Start Math 3, which allows a pathway to satisfying remediation during the summer. And finally, we recommend a pilot Math 4R class to be offered to high school seniors in April through June. But let me now transition to English. It's important to know that English remediation at Fresno State is integrated into the composition requirement. Both remediation and composition are satisfied by either the English 10 or the English 5A, 5B sequence, and the committee recognizes the leadership role of the English department of Fresno State and their continued leadership in the CSU as discussions continue about what is best practice. Specifically, we make the following recommendations. First, a self-guided placement inventory be integrated into dog days. Second, we recommend a change in English course scheduling to expand the number of seats in English 5A during the fall semester and to expand the number of seats in English 10 the spring semester. By doing so, we would encourage some high-performing students to delay English 10 enrollment to the spring, but local student success data supports this recommendation. Third, the committee recommends piloting an Early Start summer portfolio to guide the selection of the best course sequence, and the committee recommends reducing class size from 25 to 20 for English 5A and 5B. Finally, turning our attention to the campus itself, we recommend a dialogue surrounding the need for labeling remediation and an increase in coordination efforts among campus supplemental instruction providers. Further, beyond our campus, we recommend the CSU system review the effectiveness and the consequences of the Early Start program, the remedial cutoff scores institutionalized by Executive Order 665, and the predictive validity of the English placement test. These suggestions exist in the shadow of our campus's long-standing commitment to remediation best practice, and we hope our recommendations ensure that Fresno State will continue to be seen as a leader preparing our students for success. Thank you.
I'd like to thank our panelists. Particularly, I would like to thank you for the very methodical, thoughtful way that you went about your work. I'd like to also share my appreciation for your ability to look at research, to look at data, and to think about best practices and how we might implement them here at Fresno State. At this time, it is important to call your attention to our website. And if you will see here, website fresnostate.edu/academics/student success. This is an important website where you can go and review the actual reports of each of these subcommittees. You can see the details. And it is also important that you share your feedback, things that you think particularly resonate with the work that we have ahead. So I would encourage you to share that feedback. As Vice President Lamas and I go to the Cabinet, we will, again, take that feedback and we will include it as we present our recommendations to the Cabinet. At this time, we would like to give you the opportunity to ask questions. We have some mics in the room. Questions for our leaders on our subcommittees on student success.
Thank you for that panel. That was really interesting, kind of exciting. I was wondering if on that website there, would what you presented be on there, or could we have copies of what you sent? Because I couldn't write everything down. So many good ideas.
I believe those ideas are in detail in the reports on the website.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Lawson, you mentioned during your presentation about having a 2-day, I guess, before school starts experience for students. And you mentioned they would break out by their majors in half a day. What about all those undeclared students?
Right, so we did, University Advising Center would essentially take on that other group of undeclared so that they also had a place to go, and that would probably be designed to really maybe explore what some of those options were for majors. So. So question I can repeat for you was, for those 2 days, where would the students be housed? So we know that a lot of our students are already on campus or coming to campus. Residence Hall would be open at that point. So the STEM Collaboratives project that Ken had mentioned earlier this morning that we have in the College of Science and Math, we run a 4-day summer experience. And because the budget, there wasn't a lot of money for it, we just said you will be expected to show up. And it wasn't an issue really at all. But that is really the reason why we've got it right before the semester starts, so that it's a little easier for those students when they are just coming into town.
I want to make a clarifying point. As many of you know, I really dislike the commuter word because I don't feel there's usually used in a way where anybody calls to it with quality. What we find is that half of our students live within 10 miles, and in Fresno it's about 10 minutes, and 3/4 of our students are living within 15 miles. So despite the fact that we only have about 2,000 beds on campus, most of our students are coming here earlier and are around and can access housing in other ways. We are working with some of the students, obviously are homeless and have other circumstances, but it is one of the myths that I have found that people do not understand. When you're 10 minutes away or 15 minutes away, it's not how you get to campus, it's what you do when you get here. So.
I'd like to add a little bit about the first year experience. Was there any discussion in regards to transfer students and their first year experience here at Fresno State? Since we do get approximately 40 to 60%.
Yeah, our charge was to really look at a first year experience for incoming freshmen only. We didn't tackle the transfer issue, but that is another sort of onboarding issue that we need to look at, but outside of the charge of the committee.
I'd like to know if the task committee was, if you guys had Dr. Angel's research when you were coming up with your recommendations, and if so, specifically for the first year experience. We know that the African American population at Fresno State has decreased for the past few years. So are there any specific recommendations that you can make for the first year experience for African American students here at Fresno State?
So we do have access to all of the data through Tableau, and we did look at that, and in particular what we're really focused on is that retention issue after the first year. So we know that that drop from between first year and second year is where we lose the greatest proportion of our students. Because we were charged with looking at a freshman experience for all students, we didn't think about how we might break that out across groups. So it was really just something really broadly designed for all incoming freshmen.
Is that something that you can look at and include in a recommendation? Because I think that it is something that's important, especially me being a student, an African American student as well. And it's concerning to me that the numbers have dropped. I could take a look at the numbers on the Fresno State website with race and ethnicity pertaining to African American students. And what I saw with Dr. Angel's data is that it didn't necessarily it showed an increase for the 2009 cohort, but it didn't show that there was a decrease, particularly for African American students. And that's, for me, if you look at it as an increase and a job well done, you don't identify with the fact that the concern should still be there for African American students, because although you look at it as a positive thing with the 2009 cohort, African American student numbers have declined during that time as well, if that makes sense to you.
I think so. So I think the think there's two elements going on there. One is enrollment, right? So how many we get in, which is that, again, outside. So that's a recruitment issue. And then the first year experience that we looked at was really focused more on a retention issue, so keeping those students here as they transition into their second year. And one of the things that Ken had mentioned this morning, that these high impact practices do seem to disproportionately benefit our underrepresented minority students. So that's sort of how we are thinking about this first year experience, and how the first year experience in science and math is really designed to focus on closing those achievement gaps and retaining more of those underrepresented minority students.
Maxine, you have an additional comment?
I just wanted to make note that when you look at the 2009 graduation data, you will, and if you disaggregate it by racial groups or ethnic groups, you will find that the African American graduation rate went up as well. In fact, from the 2008 cohort, I think the rate was like 38%, and then the 2009 jumped to like 50%. And please don't hold me, for those numbers, but if you check it out, you'll see there's a significant jump. So they did perform really, really well in that 2009 cohort.
May I add something to this gentleman here? I just want to say that I think the whole university cares very much about creating a welcoming environment for all students. And I would welcome your involvement to come to one of our college advising network meetings so we can hear more from you. I know we're wanting to have more of a presence in the community and do more outreach, and I would welcome you to attend one of our meetings so that we can further our conversation.
I'd like to say that was a great question you asked, and unfortunately, I was a co-chair with Andrew on the first year experience as well as the advising task force, and the two will go hand in hand in a lot of respects. Unfortunately, we didn't have the time to look at every aspect of that, but it is very important. One thing that I do want to mention is a lot of those co-curricular activities that we're talking about, we didn't really lay out what those would be, because exactly what you're talking about, we would want to infuse some of those special populations and what they need, and how can we target those populations more directly and get them involved and engaged through first year experience, through advising, and many of the other things that they were talking about up there. I think the question you ask, it goes across that whole spectrum. And yes, that is one of our primary goals, is to raise the graduation rates of all student populations, but particularly those right now that we're seeing are very low. But great question, and yes, please get involved in some of our groups.
I'd like to also underscore the importance of your question and the focus that we need to keep on increasing the number of African American students at Fresno State, our better recruitment efforts. So thank you very much, and I will take that back with Vice President Lamas to the Cabinet as an area that we need to, again, give considerable attention to. So thank you. Other questions?
Yeah. Hi. I also am one of the faculty working on the first year experience, and I'm just going to keep the conversation going a little bit longer. My name's Beth Wyman, and working with Ken O'Donnell and Dr. Lawson, we actually have been training to actually be more effective in first year experiences, and some of the data that they showed us is just retaining one extra African American in a science changes the national demographic. And so using those types of motivations and understandings, we are working pretty hard, and so I'm really glad that that came up. Also, I had a second question. I was really fascinated by the class availability bottleneck issue that Dr. McDonald was working on, and so I'm a scientist, and one of the things that we do lack is the lab space, and that's a huge kind of problem. And one of the things that I've experienced is, and I'm curious about your recommendations, the CSU has huge amount of resources for us to actually do course redesign that will also help us become more effective in our course offerings, online, offline. And so I didn't know if you guys looked into that.
No, if I'm understanding your question, we did not look at resources. We were instructed and challenged to dream big without figuring in the actual dollar amounts, and so that's what we did. But that's something to research,
Yeah,
though.
I would love to talk to you about that. So the CSU has a ton of resources for us, course redesign, using technology for faculty and departments to actually tackle those bottleneck issues. So there's a lot of funding and help for faculty.
Thank you.
I wanted to follow up a little bit on the provost's comment in terms of African American students. We have a group right now working on a strategic plan to try to raise the number of students we enroll at the university, because we've gone from about 4.5% to about 3.5% over the last several years. So that's been underway for months. We've met with local pastors. We're taking a look at our service area and our out-of-service area, how we might be able to do some things to also attract students from those other areas to come to Fresno State. We have been doing that for now almost 2 years, I believe, or so, with the Native American student population, because again, that's an area where our numbers are not as high. We're doing very well with the increases in Latino population, fairly well with Asian population. Our white students have gone down a little bit as the other populations in our 4 counties have gone. So we're very, very much aware and looking at these issues, and the work has begun, and hopefully we can make better progress.
One last question, please.
It's an easy one, so don't worry. It's actually for Debbie. I'm right here. Right here. In your language, and maybe you've already thought about this, and it's mostly just a comment, you're talking about, I'm excited about the new processes that you've laid out because it's so needed on campus. A lot of the things that you're talking about are being implemented for fall. So, and maybe that's just kind of the terms that you're using, but some of us hire before fall, so that kind of process would be too late for us. We have to do a lot of training in a lot of departments. So I hope that's just a consideration that's kept in mind about getting that stuff in the spring before or the summer and available to those students and departments.
Yeah, absolutely. In the system we have now, I mean, there are a lot of postings, and we can work with you to help increase student applications, but that's something we need to look at too because of summer employment. Maybe we need to do a job fair for student employment in both the spring and the fall to accommodate for the summer, so thank you for that.
I want to thank you for your wonderful questions and your insight, and also your call to attention on issues that we haven't yet had the time to really put our data and our thinking behind, but we will. I do again want to encourage you to give feedback to our WW website, and again, your voice will be heard. It will help us as we move forward in discerning our next path. Would you again join me in thanking the leadership and the panels?